President Trump has stirred up a diplomatic spat today after testing the patience of a key U.S. ally, not Israel. In this case, it's Italy's top diplomat there abruptly canceling a planned trip to the U.S. set for this weekend after a back and forth between Mr. Trump and the Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. Now, the two were together at the G7 summit in France this week, where the president claimed in an interview with Italian TV that Meloni, quote, begged him for a photo and that he felt sorry for her. Meloni responded in a video on X, calling his account totally fabricated and saying Italy and I never beg. She goes on to say, I don't know why the president of the United States behaves this way with his own allies. It's not, after all, the first time this has happened. And I can only say it's a shame he doesn't show the same determination with the enemies of the West, with the enemies of the United States. Well, she's right. It's hardly the first time the president has belittled, dismissed, or targeted America's closest friends. Also at the G7, he called Mexico's president a sacred woman, make that a scared woman. He said the French president's wife treats him badly earlier this year. He said that Germany's chancellor was doing a terrible job. He mocked the Canadian prime minister as the future governor of Canada. And, of course, he threatened Denmark by suggesting he would take Greenland one way or the other. Greenland, of course, is Danish territory. NBC's Gabe Gutierrez is at the White House. Gabe, the Italian foreign minister who canceled his visit over Trump's comments, called them, quote, serious and offensive toward Meloni and all of Italy. How dangerous is this? How serious is the damage with the Italian government? And I got to ask you this, as the guy who stands there every day, why does the president regularly target America's allies and treat them like this?
Well, Tom, this is, as you know, nothing new from President Trump. He has been escalating his rhetoric against European allies, really, throughout his second term, especially, to say nothing of his first term. But really, he has felt emboldened during this term to really go after European allies for what he sees as not doing enough. Especially recently, he has been frustrated with multiple European allies for, in his view, not doing enough to help reopen the Strait of Hormuz, for not trying to help the United States in a variety of ways. And you just laid out some of the snubs against allies, not just in Europe, but also in Canada. And he's, talked about making Canada the 51st state. And he's also railed against the president of France, Emmanuel Macron. Even though during this G7 summit, there hadn't been any huge explosion, except perhaps that joke that he says is a joke when he walked into that room an hour late. He kept those world leaders waiting. He walked in and he joked, I'm the boss, as he was walking in. Still, though, he did earn some praise from those G7 leaders for this memorandum of understanding in Iran. They praised it, but then came overnight this escalating feud with Italy. And I spoke with the president earlier today, Tom. I asked him, Meloni was a former ally of his. What did he think? What did he make of this? He doubled down. He said that she was a fan, but he didn't want her as a fan because, quote, she wasn't there for us, referring to Italy not being there when it came to the conflict in Iran, Tom.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.